Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Chucky's Thugs. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
We are always ready to talk Raiders football. We've got a lot to cover, even as we slide into the offseason. And Heidi, do you have some news to share with everyone about this show and what's going to be happening next week?
Well, I have some potential news, and the potential news is that hopefully Homer and us will be reunited. That's the plan.
All right, we'll keep our fingers crossed here.
Yeah, it's not set in stone yet, but that is the plan. So we are anxiously awaiting rejoining with him. So everyone keep your fingers crossed, and if anybody sees him in jail, please bail him out and send him our way.
We'll continue to keep the chair warm right here.
Absolutely. Today on the show, we'll talk about where the team stands as far as both the general manager and head coaching positions are concerned. We'll take a look at the roster, who may be staying and who may be going, and then we'll start to develop and talk about our wish lists for both free agency and the 2022 NFL Draft, which will be in Las Vegas, by the way.
Okay, Raider Nation, we have a big jersey giveaway coming up. You've got one more week to register. Here's how. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check in with us by going to the web. Just visit onlynationpod.com. We'll announce the jersey giveaway on next week's show.
And all you have to do is send us your contact info. You can send it to us personally, to me or to Tom, or send it to one of the accounts for the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, even Facebook. So you send it in, we will get it, we'll get you entered.
We're going to start the year off right by getting you into some Raiders jersey.
Oh yeah, baby.
Here's the latest Raider news.
Mike Mayock was relieved of his duties as general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders last week. Now the search is on for his replacement. As of this recording, the four leading candidates are Bears Assistant Director of Player Personnel, Champ Kelly, who is 42, 44-year-old Dave Ziegler, who is currently the Patriots Director of Personal Development, Bengals scout Trey Brown, who is 36, and Ed Dodds, the 41-year-old Colts assistant GM.
All right, now we'll talk more about the GM position a little later in the show, but the name that I keep hearing is Ed Dodds. He cut his eye teeth in the NFL as an intern with the Raiders back when Al Davis was still around. And if the Raider tradition of staying within the family, so to speak, holds true, then Ed Dodds just might be the guy.
It was not a surprise to see Mike Mayock go. I had called that pretty much even before Gruden was out, that he would not be long for the Raiders organization. I really like the name of Ed Dodds. He is the name that the Raiders really are circled in on, and they really want to give him a shot. I know that they are going out of their way to make sure that they can get a talk with him, and they want to search high and low to see if he really might be the guy that they're looking for.
I'm going to give everybody a wild card here, though. 44-year-old Dave Ziegler, who comes over from the Patriots, Director of Player Personnel. I have heard through the grapevine, not any substantiated resource, but that if Davis decides to go the Patriot way, we could be looking at a GM and then possibly also bringing in a head coach from the Patriots as well. A guy by the name of Josh McDaniel, who we're all familiar with from old Broncos lore. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that combination, but I still hope that Ed Dodds is the guy.
You saw the cringe on my face when you said Josh McDaniel, didn't you?
I did. The only thing that I could get in my head, and I could not get it out of my head, was him standing on the sidelines when the Raiders gave him that epic beatdown in Denver, courtesy of Tom Cable.
Josh McDaniel, I would feel so sorry for him. The guy would be so lost. He wouldn't know if he's staying or if he's going because he changes his mind every 10 seconds. I don't want to disparage him as a coach because I'm sure he's a very good one, and he is a very good coach. But, man, he has played this up year after year, and I am just not interested in him toying with the Raiders.
I personally hope they go a different direction.
Yeah, I do as well. On Monday of last week, the Raiders began adding to their roster by signing 12 players to reserve future contracts. Safety Jordan Brown, guard Lester Cotton Sr., defensive back Kayvon Frazier, offensive lineman Honus Grasu, defensive end Gary Green, center Brett Heidi. You know who would have been really nice there is, the guy that plays for the place in Houston.
Oh, yeah, the Texans.
The Texans, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jimmy Morrissey's on their roster, so we wouldn't be signing him to a reserve future.
Yeah, so we'll have to make do with center Brett Heidi. That's close enough. That's what I'll say his name is.
Okay.
Defensive lineman P.J. Johnson. Linebacker Justin Marsh Lillard. Offensive lineman Jeremiah Putasi. Running back Trey Regas. Wide receivers Dylan Stoner and DJ Turner. 11 out of the 12 finished the season on the Raiders practice squad.
All right, it's always nice to see guys get to hang on to those dreams of playing in the NFL, even if it's only for a few months. And though it's probably a long shot for any of these guys to make the team, you just never know. If they all put in the work, position themselves properly, and get a lucky break here or there, you might see one or two of these guys playing on Sundays, either for the Raiders or maybe in another uniform. So best of luck to all these guys.
Yeah, and even some of them, we recognize their names. We definitely recognize Trey Regas and Dylan Stoner and DJ Turner. And it'll be interesting to see how many of them can actually stick around long enough to make a name for themselves, even in preseason.
I really had hoped that DJ Turner was going to get an opportunity to return punts. We heard even back in the preseason, all John Gruden would talk about was DJ Turner, the punt returner. And I wondered if he would get an opportunity to at least have a shot at it. And I was surprised that they didn't bring him in at some point during the season to see what he had.
And it's not because I think Hunter Renfrow isn't very good at it. I think Hunter Renfrow is fantastic at returns. I just don't want to see him get hurt or worn out.
Yeah, I think he really has too much on his plate right now.
Yeah. 3 more players were also signed to reserve future contracts by week's end. William Sweet, a 6'6", 313-pound tackle out of North Carolina, who was signed as an undrafted free agent by the Arizona Cardinals back in 2019, and who has had brief stints with the 49ers, Cowboys, Falcons, and Javon Wims, a free agent wide receiver. He was a 7th-round draft pick by the Chicago Bears in 2018 and spent 3 seasons with the Bears before being waived just prior to the 2021 season. Wims was brought on to the Raiders practice squad in 2021 and was released on January 11th, then brought back on the 18th. Safety Natrell Jamerson was originally a 5th-round selection by the New Orleans Saints in the 2018 draft and has spent some time on 6 different NFL rosters, most recently with the New York Giants in 2021.
All right, now William Sweet, I believe, might be able to challenge some of the competition for a depth spot at tackle. If he doesn't see the playing field, I hope he could at least push Brandon Parker, but that's assuming that he or any of the other future reserve signees make it much past the draft.
It's always interesting to see the comings and goings on the reserve future lists, and every once in a while there will be a name that you just keep seeing their name poke through, and they just keep bobbing around, and all of a sudden they make an impact on your team or on another team. They really pay their due, and they get there.
And when I did some research on Wims, the wide receiver who came over by way of Chicago, He's probably most known for anything else for getting in a fight and getting suspended during the 2020 season.
Raiders punter A.J. Cole was named to the Associated Press All-Pro First Team, while kicker Daniel Carlson and defensive end Max Crosby were both selected to the All-Pro Second Team. Cole finished the season with both league and career highs, with an average of 50 yards per punt. His longest punt of 71 yards tied for the fourth longest in the league. Carlson, during the regular season, had 5 game-winning field goals, which tied him for the most ever in a single season in NFL history. Carlson also earned 4 AFC Special Teams Player of the Week honors in 2021, the most by any kicker in NFL history. Meanwhile, Max Crosby's 2021 journey started when teammates named him team captain. Then he was voted to the first Pro Bowl of his career and received 2 honors from his team, the Raiders. The Raiders gave him the Commitment to Excellence Award and the Craig Long Award, given to the player who best exemplifies professionalism and collaboration with the media at large.
Now, I still think that Carlson was robbed, even though when you lose out to a guy like Justin Tucker, you just have to shrug your shoulders. The sad thing is we got to see Carlson kick so many field goals as opposed to extra points. A.J. Cole, what can I say other than well-deserved, young man? And as for Max Crosby, well, that man is getting ready to get paid.
Yes, all 3 gentlemen really earned their honors. Cole just had a season that was lights out. And Max Crosby, he can't stop singing his praises. And Daniel Carlson, again, lights out. Danny Ice, he just, it didn't matter what the situation was. He lined up the kick and he just, it went through the uprights. He did exactly what he needed to do.
I know that there are other teams, when their kickers come on the field, they kind of are nervously clenching their fists and everything, but that never happened for me as far as when Carlson came trotting on the field. I always knew that he would make the kick.
The only chance that he would have to lose a kick if it was like some, almost worthless extra point kick or something in a meaningless game. But when it came down to an actual extra point or an actual field goal that needed to be nailed, he was right there. And finally, both Trevon Moehrig and Nate Hobbs were recently named to the PFF All-Rookie team. They were 2 of the 8 players who made the list who were not selected in the first round.
So you have to give Mayock and Gruden a lot of credit. They made the move to go out and get Moehrig by moving up in round 2, and we keep hearing good things about Nate Hobbs on the field anyway. Now, I think where these guys ended up at the end of the year is a better testament to what Mayock was saying about drafting in the middle rounds in 2021 than what we saw unfold in 2020.
Okay, for our first discussion, let's talk offense. And of course, that always starts with the quarterback on the offensive coordinator. Is it too early to start talking about those things? Do we need to wait until we get the head coach and the GM questions answered first? I think that, yes, it is a little bit too early to start talking those things. The Raiders need to build this team properly, and rather than the haphazard ways that they've been piecing the teams together, like a patchwork quilt. They need to have somebody in charge of football. They need to have a president of football operations. They need to have a GM. The GM has to hire the head coach. The head coach needs to come in with his team or come in and develop his team as the coaches underneath them. Until you do that, you're just throwing pasta against the wall and hoping that something sticks. Let the Raiders build something in order. Let them build a strong foundation to what they need. President of football operation, general manager, head coach, go from there. It's too early to start talking all this stuff until these answers have been made. the Raiders have been going out of order for so long, but the Raiders have been completely discombobulated for so long, and the record shows that the Raiders just have not they have not presented anything in an orderly fashion, in a way to come out on top, in a way to have victories. So get the team's foundation laid and then move on from there.
All right, now, Heidi, I think you and I are pretty much on the same page with this one. I think we need to go first things first. Now, even as the Raiders settle in on the general manager, who may have already been picked by the time this podcast airs, there are two things that I think need to happen. Number one, I think the Raiders need to go ahead and say goodbye to Greg Olson. He may have done some good things as the OC, and I'll give him that, but it's time for a new guy and a new system to take shape. Now, I don't know who that next new guy will be, but I think it's only fair to let Ole go now and give him an opportunity to latch on to another team. Now, the very next thing that needs to happen, in my opinion, is a meeting between the new GM, whoever that happens to be, and the quarterback, and get those two guys on the same page. Because I don't see any franchise quarterbacks out there to turn to. And this year's quarterback draft class is pretty weak. And what that means is that the Raiders will need to hitch their wagons to Derek for at least one more year under contract and float the possibility of him being franchised in 2023. Now, that's going to be around $35 million, so Derek's certainly going to get paid. Between now and then, they'll need to bring in another young quarterback, someone not named Peterman, and start to ease into that transition. The new coach, whoever it is simply going to have to be on board with that, as well as the new OC.
Yeah, I think I was speaking from the perspective of the Raiders' coaching pantry has already been wiped clean. That everything is starting afresh. So, in my perspective, there is no Greg Olson to get rid of. But yeah, absolutely, get rid of him. He needs to go. Whoop, whoop, drop kick, boom. There you go.
And really, I don't wish him any ill will, but I think it's a service to him as well as to the organization. If you let him go now, maybe he has an opportunity to latch on with another team. But if you already know that he's not going to be part of the plans, cut him loose.
It's about time for him to retire. He's been a coach long enough. These are long, hard days. Let him get up and take his little grandson fishing. He'll be happier that way. All right, after the GM and quarterback, let's talk about the head coaching situation. What do you see happening? And what I see happening is what I've already said, that they have to fill a president of football operation, a GM, and then talk about the head coach. The foundation needs to be laid. Of course, they have ideas of who they want as head coaches. I know Mark Davis would really like to have Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh is just using the Raiders as a negotiating tool. I don't see that really happening. Definitely, foundation needs to be laid, and then the head coach. And that head coach probably should come in with the attitude of knowing that Derek Carr will be his quarterback for another year or two. And while he is working with Carr today and for the next year or two, he is bringing in his own quarterback to develop, be that through the draft or be that through free agency.
All right, now, there's been a lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh. Okay, a lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh. But here's the thing. Regardless of whether you like Jim Harbaugh or not, the main question here is how much control is Mark Davis willing to give? If the Raiders do the thing with Harbaugh, it'll be just like handing the keys to Gruden all over again. Harbaugh could come in, bring in his own guys, tear everything down, throw everything into complete rebuild mode, and I think that's the worst possible scenario for this Raiders team, that I believe is just 3 to 5 pieces away from contending for another championship. And if Harbaugh were to be hired before a new GM is even in place, then basically he would then be hiring his own boss. And we've seen how that played out. Look, I like Jim Harbaugh, and I think he could do great things as a coach. But one, as I mentioned last week, I don't think he's leaving Michigan. And two, even if he does come to the NFL, I think there's a much better chance that he ends up in Chicago than in Las Vegas. Okay, as far as Harbaugh is concerned, I've said my piece for now anyway.
Yeah, I think Harbaugh is a good coach. And like I said last week, that when we hired Gruden, Harbaugh is the coach that I actually wanted instead of Gruden. But the time has passed. He is happy in the college ranks. He beat Ohio State. He's king of the world. Let him be king of the world in his kingdom. He doesn't need to come here. That's not to say that if he did end up here, I would be upset. I would welcome him. But I really think the Raiders need to set that foundation of football minds and then coaches, the players being selected by those coaches.
And he's going to want just a little bit too much power. And I think that we've already been down that road, as I mentioned. Mark Davis hands him the keys. It'll be just like Gruden all over again. I don't think that is going to play well in the city of Las Vegas.
Yeah, the Gruden experiment failed. I think that is safe to say that now. The Gruden experiment was a novelty. It was something good to try out, but there's only one person that can hold on to that kind of power and do a good job. And his name is not John Gruden. It is Bill Belichick. And he is perfectly fine on the other side of the country coaching where he coaches. The Gruden experiment failed, and let's get back to management and then head coaches.
And I may have mentioned this before. I wasn't really a big fan of the Gruden hire when he was first brought on. I thought it was way too much money to spend on a coach. But at that point, Mark Davis really needed to bring in a rock star to be the name and the face of the team coming into Vegas. And I think Gruden was the right guy to do that. Now, again, things kind of pieced together all right in ways. I think the draft and free agency would probably raise a big question mark in those regards. And, of course, we saw some of the emails which totally unraveled and put the team really on the precipice of falling off the cliff. But having pulled away from that and having been led through and made it back to the playoffs, we're in a much better foundational situation than we were before. And we just don't need to go that rock star coaching route.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, and finally, let's talk about the offensive side of the ball. What are the top 3 priorities for this Raiders offense? I would say a right tackle, a left guard, and a number 1 receiver. Not necessarily in any order, but we need a right tackle. The Alex Leatherwood experiment didn't work. He does fine as right guard. Leave him there. Let him develop there. Left guard was obviously a huge hole. I am assuming that Denzel Good will be able to return as right guard. And dear God, we need a number 1 receiver. We need somebody that can replace Henry Ruggs. And I liked the possibilities for Deshaun Jackson. I don't know if he just didn't have it or what it was. He seemed to have it 1 or 2 games, but the rest of the time it was like looking for him out in the wilderness, could never find him.
Yeah. Now, as I mentioned, you have to get the Carr question answered and answered quickly. Now, that may come before a new head coach is in place, but that's all right. Carr has to be, in my opinion, and should be the first thing that needs to be dealt with and settled for this offense. After that, I think you need to bring in at least 1 quality offensive lineman through free agency. Gruden had the right idea a couple of years ago when he brought in Trent Brown. He just brought in the wrong guy. Now, with Denzel Good hopefully coming back strong from injury, that shores up one of the guards, but you still need a quality proven tackle. The number 1 guy on my radar is tackle Riley Reif from the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, he's not the highest rated tackle, but he has proven experience at both left and right and could be a top-end swing tackle at the worst. However, at the best, he can come in and truly be a part of that O-line that has a big-time need, and he can fill that need right away. And he can come in a lot more of a bargain price, which is always good. Now, if you have the quarterback and the tackle taken care of, then you can swing for the fences for a receiver. Yes, I would love to have Devontae Adams. No, I don't think Green Bay's going to let him go. And yes, if he does go, he's going for a lot. Now, having said all that, I wouldn't argue or complain about bringing in another guy, someone like maybe Allen Robinson of the Bears. Beyond that, though, as far as receivers go, I think you're either looking for a quality number 2 or number 3, or just wait until the middle rounds of the draft. And I've got one more free agent to look on the offensive side of the ball. Guard Austin Corbett of the Rams. He came to the Browns in the 2018 draft, had a rocky start, and then got a shot in the arm when he went to the Rams. He's been solid for the past 2 seasons and has a grade in the top half of guards in both run blocking and pass blocking. He's projected for around 4 years at $37 million, which would sting, but it might be an effective move for the Raiders' offensive line, especially if they can't get a top-end receiver.
I think we are along the same lines. I think that the guard positions are the things that need to be met the most. Like I said, we have Alex Leatherwood as a guard now. I'm hoping that Denzel Good comes back as a guard. That could take care of the guard positions, and we just get an outside right tackle. Or possibly Denzel Good. He did very good when he was playing right tackle as well. So we have some people to work with in those positions, but we need to get a solid 5-man front, providing that protection for Carr, providing a good foundation for the running game. There are going to be some really good wide receivers out there. Would I love it to be Devontae Adams? Absolutely. I watched him and Carr in college football for years, and it was a real fun to watch him playing at Fresno State together. I would love to see them together. I think the Packers are going to tag him, so I don't see him going anywhere. But there are going to be a lot of really good wide receivers coming free that I could see us picking up and moving forward with.
We just got really hit hard during the offseason because we lost Incognito and Good right off the bat. And, of course, they already went away from Rodney Hudson and Gabe and of course, Trent Brown never really showed up anyway. So the offensive line was in such a state of flux anyway. And then we had a bunch of young guys we had to lean on early. It just didn't work out to the extent that it could have. Now, it got better as the year went along, but we really need quality, proven starters and quality, proven depth.
Yeah, but if it's any consolation, Trent Brown went back to his old team and, again, contributed nothing.
Oh, he went back to his old team, the one called the bench?
Yeah. He spent a lot of time there because when he was out on the field, he did nothing.
Absolutely.
But he was too injured to get on the field most of the time. Poor guy.
Poor Trent.
Poor Trent. And since the promise of Homer returning next week is rife with possibilities, we will be getting into Soren's questions more then. We're going to give Homer a little bit of homework that he needs to work on, and that's going to be addressing the draft classes from 2018, 2017, 2016, and see how they fared for the Raiders. And so we want to get all that discussion, and we want to greet Homer with that homework. So fingers crossed, everyone, that Homer does come back, and fingers crossed that he does his homework and he's ready to discuss those draft classes.
Homework and homework.
Yeah. All right, T3, why don't you give us your top 3 for the week?
T3's top 3.
All right, this is this week's top 3. Number 1, right out of the gate, this is not going to make the Carr haters very happy. But Derek Carr, in my opinion, was the MVP of this team this year. His season-ending passing totals broke the existing season franchise record, and he showed unwavering leadership and professionalism through a season with instance after instance of issues and occurrences that could have broken any team. It's interesting how his mantra of simply keeping his head down and having a job to do was then taken up by the majority of his teammates. That is the work of a franchise quarterback. Number 2, is it just me, or do several members of the Raiders organization, maybe led by Darren Waller and Mad Max, just need to sit Nate Hobbs down and have an intervention? This young man has all the talent in the world, and he's already received accolades after a terrific rookie year, but all that he could be is being thrown away in an instant. He's already been in some trouble, and the Raiders need to put some safeguards in place to protect him from himself during the offseason. I want good things for Nate Hobbs, but I also want good things for this organization. And number 3, Jonathan Abram. He missed all of his rookie year, basically. Year 2, he came back, but made lots of rookie mistakes. A lot of times, it looked like he was just kind of running around on coverages. In year 3, Gus Bradley put him in a system that was much better suited to his style of play. He showed some flashes, but then he was lost to injury again. I think it can be safely said that he hasn't lived up to the expectations of a number 1 draft pick, and I don't know that he has a place on this team next year. On our next show, when we start taking a closer look at the defense, I'll share more of my thoughts on where I think the team should go in regards to the back end of that defense, which includes a few more new pieces. And that is this week's top 3.
The car haters aren't going to be very happy with what you said. But you're right. The MVP for the team was Derek Carr. There were certainly many other MVP contributors, but when it came down to the actual leader of the pack, it was Carr. And I don't know how he did it. Him and Rich Bisaccia pulled out a miracle that they made it to the playoffs. But for them to lead the team after what the team went through was a miracle, and I really just don't have many words I can say to it. He definitely played the part of a franchise quarterback this year, and he really showed it. And I don't think that can be argued, even by the Carr haters. Most of the Carr haters didn't see him getting into the playoffs. I'm not a Carr hater. I love Carr, and I didn't see him getting into the playoffs. Not after that Cincinnati and Chiefs loss. But what do you know? Miracles happened, and they did. Now, Nathan Hobbs, I need you to come up here to Alaska, and I'm going to school you.
Here we go.
You are going to be doing runs and laps in freezing weather. You're going to be running around on the ice. You're going to be doing everything miserable that can possibly be done in order to get something through your thick skull to quit messing up. Now, I know you're young. I know that being in Vegas with a lot of money and a lot of accolades is really tempting. But come on, you dodged a bullet by just being asleep behind the wheel after you had been drinking. Dodged a bullet on that. And to then be caught going, 110 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour speed zone? Dear God, lighten up, ease up. You are not He-Man. You are not Superman. You are mortal. Something can happen to you. You were given a gift by being able to get through the being asleep behind the wheel. You've been given another gift to only get pulled over for speeding. Don't blow it. You have all the world in front of you. And everything that you want to do is for the taking. Don't blow it. Just do what you need to do. Put your nose to the grindstone and produce. Get rid of this hot dogging. Just quit being a hot dog. Just behave. Just behave.
I hope Darren Waller and Mad Max can grab him by the scruff of the neck, collar, and he'll listen to them. I'm pretty sure he'll listen to them, particularly Darren Waller. I don't want to say no to those guys.
I would not want to say no to either one of them. And I think each of them is a little bit bigger than Nate Hobbs.
And together they would be a force.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that Nate Hobbs has an issue with substances. I'm not saying that at all. But he has an issue with making proper decisions around them.
And he also has an issue about being a teammate right now.
These are all issues that Max Crosby and Darren Waller, they can both help him with. Not saying he has an issue. He has an issue with making decisions around it. Grow up.
Gotta
Just
change.
be an adult.
Gotta change.
Jonathan Abram, I don't even know what to say about him anymore. I really didn't want to call the John Gruden experiment the failed experiment. I'm almost at the point of calling Jonathan Abram the failed experiment as well. If there is a new defensive coordinator coming into the system, I would be interested to see what he can do with Abram. My hopes are not high, but God, Abram, you just got to quit killing yourself by running around and running into brick walls. You are breaking your body. Just stop. Learn how to play with your head instead of ramming your head into the wall. You can do it.
And I think he was really lucky that he had Gus Bradley set up a system that took advantage of his strengths. But as you said, I think a lot of times he was running around at 110 miles an hour, trying to make the play everywhere and not paying attention to his zones and his coverages and not being aware of some of the things that were going on around him. So he'd go in and hit hard, but he would also miss a lot too. He would come in rushing in to make a tackle and completely whiff. And I saw that on more than one occasion. He needs to do a better job of tackling, and he needs to do a better job of just knowing where everybody is.
Yeah, definitely. Give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we will share your thoughts. And this week, we have a letter from John. He wrote regarding our last episode. Just finished listening to your season wrap-up Bengals game episode, and as usual, it was excellent. Oh, John, you're too kind.
We're blushing.
Yeah. I'm purple. Oh wait, I'm wearing purple.
There you go.
But I'm blushing purple too.
Okay.
Just a pity we fell short after the efforts everyone put into getting into the dance. I was so excited and absolutely gutted with the game. We should have done a lot better, but incredibly proud of the Raiders after a crazy season. Totally agree with Heidi with her hero shout out for Coach Rich. Some job the man did. Anyway, can't wait for the madness to start again. Please tell Tom thanks for his fantastic history pod. And also, hope Homer's okay. Thanks, guys, for all your time and efforts in holding down a great show for us over here with all the big news. Big respect. John from Scotland.
Hey, John, thanks so much. And, of course, we're keeping our fingers crossed for big things in 2022. We're keeping our fingers crossed that Homer can join us again. And thank you for your support of Raider Roots. It's been a pleasure putting together all the historical content. And it's a trip down memory lane each and every week.
It is. And I produce the show, so I listen to it before anyone else gets to listen to it. And it is something that I cannot go away from without having learned something. And usually I've learned quite a bit from every single episode.
And I have learned a lot as well, but it's been a lot of pleasure putting it together. And I've mentioned this several places I've been around the country, called on several different interviews, and it's just such a pleasure putting this together. There's no other organization like the Raiders.
And why don't you tell us what's going on with Raider Roots this week?
All right, this week we'll look at the year 1982. The Raiders moved to L.A. There is a nasty player strike that wipes out several weeks of pro football. Marcus Allen comes to the Coliseum, the L.A. Coliseum, and the Raiders fall just short of another AFC Championship matchup. It all happened in the year 1982.
All right, T3, why don't you see if we know or we don't know something this week?
All right, it's time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and our entire listening audience a Raiders-related question with 3 multiple-choice answers to choose from, so just give it your best guess. Here is this week's question. When John Madden first began his career as a broadcaster in 1979, he went to work for CBS, and his first game was the 49ers versus the Saints in 1979. Who was his broadcast tag team partner? Was it A, Frank Gleber, B, Pat Summerall, or C, Tom Brookshire? Heidi, what is your guess?
Unless this is a trick question, I'm going to go with B, Pat Summerall.
And here's the funny thing. Pat Summerall was who he was teamed up with starting at the end of 1980 and 81 and became part of that legendary broadcast team. But he was first teamed up with Frank Gleber when the 49ers and Saints squared off in 1979. So A is your answer. I put B in there because he's well known for having teamed with Pat Summerall, but that's not who he started out with. So A, Frank Gleber is your answer.
Well, if you would have said it wasn't Pat Summerall, I probably would have had a 50-50 chance of guessing it.
Okay, it wasn't Pat Summerall.
Obviously, I know enough that I know that Pat Summerall is the is the go-to answer, and that's who the legendary team was. So
anyway,
I knew that much. Yeah. Anyway, you're so mean to me.
All right. Now, Raider Nation, it's time for Heidi's Heroes. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Okay, Raider Nation, every single week when it comes time for me to choose a Heidi's Hero, I have to think, which causes a lot of pausing and dead air and screeching of neurons, and there's just a lot of empty vacuum when I try to think. There's not much to it. But this week I thought, well, gosh, what has made me cry this week? Oh, I know. I can come up with a hero that way. I'm just going to steal this straight from Raiders.com and read the entire thing. Fullback Alec Ingold hasn't had an easy journey throughout his life, let alone to the NFL. The Raiders team captain's story took the spotlight in an NFL Films feature discussing his adopted parents, his experiences with adoption, and how football became his safe haven from the world. Ingold's parents, who adopted him at birth, referred to their son as an amazing gift, something that we will treasure forever. His experience with adoption, as well as his family's undying support, have shaped him into the person and player he's become. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my little sister and my parents and being so close to a family that loves you so much, said Ingold. But as a kid, you asked that question. Why was I being put up for adoption? I didn't know if I was too big of a liability for my birth parents. I didn't know if I was good enough. There were times I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders as a 7-year-old because I needed to be perfect for not being good enough and being put up for adoption and having to go through that, continued Ingold. And that's just such a deep part of who I am that I felt like I just needed to put up this front all the time. And then I'd get behind these walls in this house and at night and I'd just lose it. Ingold described football as a sanctuary in helping find who he truly was outside of his family. He used football as an outlet on the way to becoming a star high school quarterback in the state of Wisconsin, parlaying a scholarship to attend the University of Wisconsin, where he switched positions to fullback. As a Badger, his athletic ability and grit shined at the position, with over 500 total scrimmage yards and 21 total touchdowns in his 4 years. The fullback, not knowing if the NFL was in his future, accepted a job for Oracle selling computer software out of college. However, the Raiders invited him to tryouts and ultimately signed him as an undrafted rookie free agent. He's made an impact as the team's starting fullback since joining the organization. As his star has risen on the field, he's also used his platform in the NFL to become a national spokesperson for Adopt U.S. Kids, raising awareness for adoption and foster children. The fullback was enjoying a career season in 2021 before he tore his ACL tendon in the Raiders' Week 10 game against the Kansas City Chiefs. While the injury put him on the shelf for the second half, Ingold is determined to come back even stronger for the start of the 2022 NFL season. "You've got to know that there's going to be bumps in the road," said Ingold. "I can break some ribs, I can tear an ACL. You can throw whatever you want at me. I'm going to come back stronger because I have a purpose of sharing my story and helping other people find their identity." And that was written by Raiders.com digital team reporter Levi Edwards. And that is why Alec Ingold is my Heidi's hero this week.
And Heidi, you and I sometimes talk about sharing ideas and information on heroes, but we did not this week. But if you asked me ahead of time who I thought you might have selected as your hero, Alec Ingold would have been the guy. I heard snippets of that letter, and I heard the emotion with which Rich Bisaccia referred to it a couple of times in his press conferences. What a leader. And you can talk about injuries and losses during the course of the 2021 season, but I think that probably the biggest loss that we had during the year was the loss of Alec Ingold, because he was a leader not only on the field, but also in the locker room. And he continued to be with the team every step of the way, even as they made it into the playoffs. So kudos to Mr. Alec Ingold for all the things he's done so far since being with the Raiders. And congratulations on being a true Heidi's hero.
Yeah, and if you do get the chance, look at the little feature film that the NFL did make on his story. I think it's about 7 minutes long. So check it out online. It's a tearjerker.
It is well worth your time to check it out, though. What a story.
And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KevlarPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. Join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Angria Trask on the Captain and His Wenches show.
All right, Raider Nation, there is still 1 week left to sign up for that special custom Raiders jersey we'll be giving away. It doesn't cost you a thing to enter. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we can use in one of our upcoming episodes and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are 2 easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, several of you do, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. Remember to contact us so we can sign you up for that jersey. And I want to also thank you all for your continued support of the Raider Roots podcast. This week, we'll be traveling to L.A. in the year 1982.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation, we are the only nation. Raiders.